Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park 20 playthrough with the Phillies. We're about to go into another season here. We're spring training in the 2043 season. Off season's over. Things did not go really all that good in the off season, and I've kind of had a change of thought, I guess, or change of plans as I went through the off season, and I'll share that with you and see what you think. But we are, for me anyway, I've already stated, 75 in game. Of course, I'm not 75 in real life, but when I hit 75 in game, I'm retiring. I'm ending this playthrough, so that gives me 2 seasons, and in some ways, just kind of going through the off season offline, I'm starting to wonder if maybe this team's missed its window, or if the window's closed, however you want to say it. And maybe those 2 seasons, and even last season, but those 2 times we were in the World Series, we should have won one of them. I think we should have made it last year. I think that was really just bad luck, however you want to say it. That we didn't last year, and we were a much better team performance-wise last year, I think, than the previous 2 seasons. But the window may have closed because we've got some guys now, McAvee and Parker, $40+ million with those 2 guys, and they're really, I think, coming to the end of their career. And you'll see when I look at the ratings how those changed over the offseason. You'll see what I'm talking about. So outside of Thompson now, we don't really have the dominant starter, which is what I've really come to believe with this team, with this game, Out of the Park 20. That if you want to make the World Series, if you want to win a World Series, you've got to have 2, 3 even, if you can manage it, number one starters, meaning these guys are going to be the top starter on your team. They're going to be the top starter on any team in the league, really. They're going to be at least, if not, outright, the definite number one starting pitcher in the rotation. They're going to be equal, I guess, or close. So now I'm down to just one, and Zach Thompson, and he's only been in the league 3 years. So I really think, and I can't get rid of those 2 guys, Parker, McAvee. I can't trade him. So this year might be a step back just to get ready for that last season is what I'm really coming to, because I think we're going to be in a better shape next season to really contend than we're going to be this season. And I'll show you right off the bat what I'm talking about. If I look at salaries for the 2044 season, we're going to be down 42, almost 43 million free just from Parker and McAvee. Paris, I'm still on the fence about this guy because of his fatigue level, or his injury proneness level, which is fragile. I mean, he missed 20 games, 30 games each of the last 2 seasons. So I don't really think I can necessarily depend on him long term. So I don't know that I'll re-sign him. And I think he'll be one of those kind of guys, if he plays most of the season and has another good one like last season, I think he'll be one of those guys who you're going to have to pay close to $20 million a year. And I don't think I want to do that. So this is over $50 million I'm going to have free next season then. You throw in Steve Bond, who I did manage to re-sign for another season. I've got to believe that this will be his last. He's even down to 2 stars rated. It was probably a risky move on my part. I just thought he played so well for us last year. I wanted him back. But now you're looking at really $60 million freed with these 3 guys. You guys here, Barbarossa, I mean, I could go down the whole list. But Kwarteng, Barbarossa, probably won't have them back. That's $70 million. So that's going to be a lot of money to play around with going into next offseason, I think. I could probably get another number one starter with that money, plus if they're available, a good offensive player, like cornerstone offensive player, maybe first baseman, whoever. So I think that's kind of the plan. And I'm hoping we're going to be competitive. I'm going to try to be this season, but it's going to be harder. We're really tight on money. We don't have any money available for free agents right now. So I think we're pretty much going to have to depend on, if we have injuries, it's going to have to come from our farm system in terms of replacing them. So that's going to be a big deal. After the offseason, it was so uneventful. I've never seen this happen, I don't think, but the owner came through in spring training and said, hey, nothing happened. Basically, the message was, nothing really happened over the offseason. Because of that, I'm lowering our budget. So he gave us even less money to play around with. So that's going to be a struggle, I think, for the rest of the year. Even though our player payroll is like 7th, we're still in a better shape now than we were 5-10 years ago. But I want to look at the off season, and then this episode, I'll just go ahead and sim through spring training. I've got all the pitching staff and roster lineups set for that. But I always like to look at the off-season summary by team, just to kind of look at how we did, and then look at how we stand in terms of wins above replacement gained or lost in the off-season. And we're pretty much right in the middle of the pack at 16th. And in the National League East, I think the Mets were probably the big movers. They're the only team that was in the positive. And then you had the Nationals, had a really tough time, lost some key players, looks like. And Miami lost 5.6 wins above replacement. Atlanta, 3.2. So outside of the Mets, no team in our division really made a lot of moves. Positive moves anyway in the offseason. And even for the Mets, they did pick up, I just remember now, they picked up a former MVP in Savello, who offensively, this guy's still pretty dangerous. At least he's got some good production, good power. He can draw walks. So he's that was probably a good pickup for them, really. And then Joey Madrano, decent defensive second baseman. And then Tyrese Eiffel, who was, even though he's just a 3-star pitcher, he was really one of the better starting pitchers available. And they put a lot of money out there for him, $20.8 million. But the thing that scares me off about him and why I think it's risky is that stamina. I mean, if this guy's not going to get 5 innings for you, I mean, that's less stamina than McAvee on my team, who's at 7, and he was struggling last year to get 5 innings on average. So I think that was a lot of money to put into this guy. So, even though they were positive, gained in wins above replacement, I don't know if I would say those are like superstar pickups. But that's where we stand, and I want to look at one other thing, then I'll look at the team. But since last episode we went over the Hall of Fame voting, I thought I would show you the results, and it's something that hasn't happened in a while, really. But Gabriel Guerrero, who I thought was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, he should have been. He did get in, 96%. That's pretty good. And great career from this guy. Definitely think he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Now I'm almost positive this is the same Gabriel Guerrero, who I think he might be with Miami now. I'm not sure. Who's in real life in the majors, working his way up. I'm sure he would love to have this kind of a career if that's indeed who he is. But he did. That's definitely first ballot to me. And then you got Tatis and Nolan Arenado. Depending on who comes in next year, I think those two guys, especially Arenado, are probably going to make it now because they've got a lot of support. But Addison Russell was a big drop, and Royce Lewis, those two guys dropped from the ballot, so they won't be around. And then the rest, I think there's a lot of guys here who just aren't going to make it long term. But now let's take a look at, starting with the pitching staff, how we're looking. I'll look at the ratings here too. I mean, that's where it's really going to be most evident. But we got Thompson at 5 stars. You got Parker at 3, and I'm hoping that's a solid 3, but his movement scared me a little bit. Might give up more home runs this year, but I still think he should be pretty good. But after that, man, it's going to be Barbarossa, Dion. I did put McAfee back in there because I traded Joe Scott. And then I'm going to take a look at this guy, Juan Gramajo, who played at Lehigh Valley last season, had a good year, really. He's at 24 years old. His movement and control needs some work, but my scout thinks he's going to have like at least a future in the back half of the rotation, whatever. I mean, that at this point, I'm probably going to need that before the season's over. So I'm hoping to get him some time in spring. If he develops, shows any improvement, he might be in the mix when opening day comes around. And then in the bullpen, I think we're a lot more solid than we were previous probably to last season. Jared Davis coming off a great season, a good lefty reliever, and then we got Paz that we picked up in the offseason. This guy is another guy who could potentially start. I think if I moved his position, he's just a 2-star as a starter, but he's got the ratings, I think, that would let you throw him in there if you needed him. And then Uribe, pretty good setup guy. And then some guys from our minor league system, and Vargas and Brinky are going to get some look this spring. And then, of course, Hadakiyama, who won the Reliever of the Year award last year, he's going to be the closer. I think we've had seasons like this before, even though, like I was saying, we don't have the dominant starting rotation that we had in the last 2-3 seasons. But the bullpen, I think, looks a little bit better this year than it has been. So hopefully that's going to be a wash, and we'll still be okay pitching wise. On the lineup side, I did pick up a catcher who I like his overall defensive ratings, and he's a 2.5-star player from OSA. My scout doesn't think as much of him, but he's a former Gold Glove at catcher. Considering what was out there and the shape that I'm in for catcher, I think it was kind of an upgrade. I'm hoping so anyway, because I gave away Scott for this guy. Scott's a much better pitcher, no question, but they're putting him in that starting rotation, looks like, in Washington. But I needed catching so bad, and that was the best I could do. This is a guy, Okazaki, who was a minor league free agent last season. He's going to be the backup right now until Quartang gets healthy, and I'm hoping he'll be healthy or middle of May or something like that. But then the rest of the lineup, we got Paris, of course, at first, but we got a couple guys to back him up. Steve Tyler, who is a 5th-round pick from 2037, so a few years ago, he's going to get, more than likely, he's going to start out at AAA. But he might have a future. I don't know. He looked good in his last 4 or 5. He's looked good really everywhere he's been in the minors. So if he looks good in AAA and develops a couple ratings here, he might be starting first baseman of the future. But Cowell, I'm hoping I can keep him on the roster because I need his bat. He's got a lot of good power. And then we're going to go with Dowdy, who is down to 2.5 stars right now. But I tell you, if Radeball, who is at 2.5 stars and just 25, he's potentially the future second baseman. So I would love if he just develops a little bit more and I could somehow trade away Dowdy, I would do that. So those two guys, I mean, Dowdy's getting the start, but I'm throwing Radeball in there every 3rd game against right-handed pitching, and I'm starting him against lefties. So I'm hoping that he gets enough time to develop a little bit. Vega's going to be the 3rd baseman, but there's another guy here, Sergio Rebello, who was a minor league scouting discovery find. At one point, he was one, if not my top prospect. He was at least one of the top prospects in my system, and I think he showed up on the top 100 prospects in the league several times. I've got some good hope, I think, on this guy. He has looked good at a couple, few stops anyway in the minors. He's slated to start in AAA, and I think that's where I want to keep him. But I'm also hoping, kind of like with Radeball and Sullivan at first, I'm hoping to get this guy some time, because if you look at his ratings, potentially, and he's just 22, a 13 contact, double digits in powered, everything double digits, and then even on OSA still thinks he's got more potential overall. They just don't think his contact's going to be as high. He's got a great arm at third, so I think he's going to be a good defensive third baseman. He's got good speed. You don't see that a lot in third baseman with power. So I'm hoping that he might be ready to step up to the starting role next season. And that's kind of where I'm looking at. I'm going to have a lot of money next year, and I'm going to have guys like Radeball, Radeball, Tyler, potentially, who could be ready to start and produce. Then I could pour that money into good, dominant starting pitching. I think that's the plan anyway. That's where I want to be next season, and maybe even a catcher if one's available, a good one available in the free agency. But then the rest of the outfield, I did pick this guy up in the Rule 5 draft, and I like his speed and defense, and honestly, he's a right-handed hitter, and that's one of the main things I picked him up for. I struggled with that last season. It seems like every prospect I've developed has been a left-handed only bat, and it's hurt us, I think, when we're going up against lefties. So I'm hoping that will help out. If you look at his ratings against lefties, pretty good. I mean, he's not gonna draw a lot of walks, but we'll see how he plays in the spring. But Steve Bond, if he starts to struggle, it may just have to be George that I go with as a starter at center field. But I don't think he's going to be the player that Bond was last year, or even Bond, for the last several years. Bond has been a pretty productive player in his career. You can see, 2,500 hits. A lot of runs scored, stolen bases. He's had a good career. But that's how we look, and I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and we'll hopefully send through all the spring training and look at how we do. So taking it a week at a time. Looks like we split. And we got, this is another catcher that I'm looking at too as a potential backup in case Quartang is too injured when he comes back. So he's signed. I'm going to move him into the active roster right now, and he's going to be the backup. So let me just do that. So for the lineups, Jim Windler is going to be backing up every fourth game. And he's an older player too at 35. He is only going to be a backup. But that's just where I'm at. I know I've said a few times, and I guess the fact that I'm dwelling on it maybe means that I am feeling a little bit bad about it, but I don't regret the Ian Norman trade for Paris at first, but I probably didn't factor in just how poor or how tough it was to get a good catcher in this league. So I keep getting these trade, they want me to trade, but I've gone through this before where you try to talk trade with them and they don't like anything you've got. All right, so keep going now. We're 2-1, maybe even 3-1. Mike Barneson, who coming off a really unexpected year for him, 37 saves, He is just signed with Cincinnati. He's had a pretty decent career all in all. He was really for those 2 seasons right there, he was a really good pitcher for us. But looks like in spring we're doing pretty good, 4-1, but it's early. I'll probably look at the team after another week or so. Still getting those messages. I should probably turn off that needs thing because man, that's all I'm getting. Let me go ahead and do that because it's getting to be annoying. I think it's going to be team needs. I'm going to delete and delete. All right. So now let's go back to playing. Starting to lose now. 6-4. 6-5 looks like. Let's take a look at the news. Wow, closer here at Texas. 4-star, but he's gone for the season. Detroit, just day to day. Jimmy Jones, decent 3-star pitcher. He's gone for the month in Cleveland. And Brandon Kinsler Jr., I think, yep, he finally retired. He retired after last season. So while we got him up, here's his final numbers. These are first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. 3-time MVP, 690 home runs, 1,800 RBIs. Finished with a 3.02 average. I mean, just amazing career. 109.2 wins above replacement. I mean, the only thing he really didn't accomplish that would have mattered for any, I guess, for the Hall of Fame would have been 3,000 hits. But this guy, he's definitely going to be there. Had one of the best seasons. I remember that 72 home runs, 144 RBIs, and then the next season he comes back and gets 160 RBIs. So great career for him. I think I'll play one more week, and then we'll look at the individual numbers. And Eric Atchison, guy I picked up in Rule 5, is out for a few days. Right now he's just backing up, so that's no big deal. And really mainly backing up against left-handed batters or pitchers. So another injury for just 6 days. This is a guy who may not, at this point, may not make the roster. He was a late season call up from Double A, and he has looked good at places, but I don't know. 3 stars is probably his ceiling, both OSA and my scout. So I think he's more than likely going to be an injury call up. So we're 9-6, tied with the Braves. Looks like we're 9-7 now. Ken Godsey still getting offers here, $3 million. This is never won the MVP. He's a former Rookie of the Year, but a lot of home runs in his career. Let's finish this game. And so we are 10-7. And that puts us game behind Atlanta. So Atlanta's looking good. New York, however, shows just how much spring training, I guess, really means. 4-13, worst record in baseball. And, you know, they were the top team in the offseason in our division in that wins above replacement chart. So let's take a look first off at the pitching staff, see how these guys are doing, and it's not going to really tell me much in a couple cases. McAvee, because that might tell me enough, really. 7.71 ERA, he's looking really rough. He might be really bullpen only at this point. I'll finish out the spring with him in the rotation, but he might just be done as a starter. Gramajo has looked good in 2 starts, so that's kind of what I wanted to see, how well he would do. And then Barbarossa, Kean Dion looking pretty good. Parker, Thompson, they're looking good. Paz, the guy I picked up in the offseason, he's not looking too good. But I still think he's probably going to make the roster. Josh Dean, man, it seems like every year I have he's on the bubble coming out of the spring. He's looking pretty bad. So I'm going to be going with 12 pitchers. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got to move 3 down, and I hate to do this to Murdoch Ings because he's looking great in the spring, but he's probably going to be the one that gets moved down, and Brinky probably, even though he's looking decent, he's probably going to be moved down, and then there's one other guy, Vargas, I think, although he's looking pretty good. So it's going to be a decision I'm going to have to make here, but I think I can do it pretty easily and not lose too much. Now, on the batting side, Ben McGee, not much in terms of power or extra bases, but 231 average, not bad. Jim Wendler, though, has looked good as a backup. Juan Paris, struggling a little bit, but 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. Barajas is probably going to be somebody I may have to trade or release because I don't think I'm going to have room for him. Ribolo is looking pretty rough, so I think he definitely needs time in AAA. Steve Bond looking good. Eric George looking pretty good. Average not great, but good production. So all in all, we're struggling a little bit offensively, but we're not in panic mode. I think we do have pretty much have the rosters set there. All right, so another decent week, I think. So what does that put us at? I'm going to look at the Braves pick up a reliever here. Not a great one, though. So we're 13-10, half game behind Atlanta. Hey, we're just kind of bouncing back and forth there. But it looks like Atlanta's going to finish with a better record. But, hey, 15-13 I'll take. I mean, we're competitive. Man, look at that National League Central. Every team really within 2-3 games of each other. But Cubs, Reds, Milwaukee all have the same record. Giants look good. Padres not. New York came through a little bit in the last few weeks, looked better. American League, Seattle and Tampa had really good springs. Spring batting leaders, do we have anybody show up here? Let's see. Gutierrez and at-bats, but that doesn't say much because I usually, when you're simming, you don't really get to manage the day-to-day roster. I mean, I could go the 7-day lineups and stuff, but I usually don't get that in-depth with it. So I do have several players picking up a lot of at-bats and things before spring's over. Pitching leaders, I don't know if we got anybody here either, but Joe Clark, 16 innings, no runs. That's pretty impressive. Saves, this guy had 12 saves. I'm not seeing anybody. Whip Clark was also there and holds. Man, they had a good spring, didn't he? So now we've got Ben Dooley out for 6 weeks in Cleveland. That's a pretty big injury. And then Steve Wages, he's only out for 5 days. That's not a big one. Thought that was going to be bigger news. All right, so we're going to have to whittle that staff down just a little bit, but not much. I think McAvee, I just don't know if Gramajo's ready for the starting rotation. I'm going to keep DePaz up there because of his ratings, but, man, I hate to turn some of these guys down. Now, Vargas, I already mentioned, he's got some upside, but he's also got some option years, so I think he's going to definitely be the one to send down. I'm gonna have to really give this some thought because Murdoch Ings looked really good. He might even be a better starter than McAfee and put Gramajo back. But I'm gonna give it some thought. I think McAfee's definitely not gonna. He's not gonna stay in that rotation, not with those kind of numbers. And then on the lineup side, I can get rid of Okazaki right now, send him down to AAA, and Steve Tyler, I want him down there because he's never played above Redding. Rabolo, I think he's going to have to get some time there too. Because for the most part, I mean, Vega, his average is not going to be good, but he's got good power. He's a good defensive third baseman. He's going to be there as a starter. But man, look at Pritchard and even Gutierrez. They struggled big time. Villalobos, this guy, he's just not developing, so he's going to have to stay in AAA, and he's out of option years. I'll try to trade him, see what I can get. I don't expect I'll get anything, though, for this guy. And I shouldn't, really. I mean, he's he's not a starter, so it's going to be some 2-3. Well, Benny Beavis, catcher, 2.5 stars. Would he be? I mean, how's his option years? One option year left. I'll just go with what I got because Quartang's coming back, so hopefully that'll be okay. Lupe Salas, fragile. Juan Portillo, former Philly, who never really developed into the player his ratings said he was going to be. I mean, his ratings used to be a lot higher than this. He was at one point, I think, a 4-star player, and just it's one of those mysteries you see sometimes with Out of the Park, where the ratings are there, but the gameplay or the actual performance is not. So he never really gave me much, so I don't let him go. Now Juan Soto can only play shortstop. So, man, I hate to lose him for nothing, but I'll just waive him and see what happens. But we're at 29, so we got to move 2 pitchers and then 2 position players. That's how it's going to work. I think Barajas is probably going to be, even though he can play multiple positions, I think it's time to move him down if I can. And then in terms of Atchison, Benefield, George, I know George is going to stay. Benefield or Atchison, though, I think I'd probably rather have Atchison at this point. So let's see if Benefield, if he has, he's able to go down. All right, so we got 3 more moves to make, but that's what I'll do offline, and then we'll get ready, come back opening day, and start the season off, and see if we can stay competitive. It's, we may surprise. Last year was a surprise. I didn't feel as confident going into that season as I had the previous 2 seasons, so we did have a great year that year. So maybe we got one more in us with this team, but I think the big thing is going to be next season. And I think we're in a really good spot to pick up a few pieces that can really dominate in this league. But as always, thanks for watching and liking, subscribing, and commenting, and I really appreciate it. And I will see you next episode.